Okay, let's get into it. A great awakening. A great awakening. This is a prophetic perspective from a dream I had of what is to come. Of what is to come. See, we look around the world at the moment and all we see is a lot of hopelessness and despair. You look at what's happening with the Syrian refugees going through Europe and trapped in nations and just got nowhere to go. They're fleeing the country. But this is rife across the globe. The global agendas that are causing wars and strife and chaos and the erosion of families. It's not good. It's not good. Power is their drug, and it's never satiated. They want more and more. So we can look around the globe and say, yes, deep darkness is truly covering the people. It surely is. And in fact, when I had this dream, I know I was looking over the Pacific Rim, the Pacific Islands, including New Zealand, but I knew it was the Pacific Rim. And what I saw over every nation, because I knew there were nations there, but I couldn't actually see the land, because every nation was covered in dark cloud. Every nation, without exception. And so I knew this perspective. What I was looking at was not good. It was darkness covering every nation. But God has a way, eh? We sang it in the first song we sang today. God has a new world. He has a whole new world planned for us. Well, thank God that he does. But that's what I was looking at. And actually, Ephesians 2, let me just read this to you. Verses 1 through to 4, Ephesians 2, says this, "Now you were dead in your trespasses and sins, in which you formerly walked, according to the course of this world." What's the course of this world? "According to the prince of the power of the air, of the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience." This is the spirit of the prince of the power of the air that is working in the earth today. "Among them we too all formerly lived in the lusts of our flesh, indulging the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath, even as the rest." That's kind of describing the world scene. "But God," I like that. Verse 4 says, "But God, being rich in mercy, because of his great love with which he has loved us." And that's the factor that nobody figures into their equations. Those who cause wars, create rumors of wars, create disease and epidemics, erode constitutions, erode family life. They forget this one thing, but God. So this vision, this dream I'm sharing with you is a but God, because this is something that's about to happen. As I said, what I saw in this dream was the whole Pacific Rim. But I know it goes further than that, because I know the seeds of what I saw were started in the 60s and the 70s. In fact, in San Francisco, which is kind of interesting. So I saw this. And what I saw, I know, is not going to be a revival, because we've had many revivals. We've had Azusa Street, a great revivals. More recently, we had Brownsville, Pensacola. There are different revivals, but I'm not talking about a revival. I'm talking about a global awakening. An awakening. That too is interesting, because there are those who say there have been 3 awakenings. And then there are those who say, no, the 4th started actually in the 60s and the 70s. That's up for dispute. I would say the awakening that is coming upon us will be the 4th awakening. But the seeds of that were sown in the 60s and the 70s. That's my take on it. We're talking about a global awakening. It will be full on. full on. The world will know. The church will know. You will know. I will know. There will be nothing half-hearted, nothing haphazard. This won't be a partial awakening in any way, shape or form. All the bells and whistles, if you like. What does that mean? That means God demonstrating who he is in his power and in his wisdom. Great to see you guys. Fantastic. What is coming upon us, you and I have not seen. But we're going to see it. It's going to be huge. All bells and whistles. That means every dimension, every spiritual dimension of Christ manifest in the earth. Healings, deliverance, miracles. Maybe Philip's transportation, eh? God needs you here today, and in 1 hour's time, he needs you in Germany. Bang, it's done. Everything you can look at in the book of Acts and beyond. Why? Because the church is going from glory to glory. This is the awakening that's about to hit the earth. When will this be exactly? I don't know. This will be a Jesus movement. And it will be centered upon Jesus the King. Many in the church have centered upon Jesus the hippie almost. So we relegate Jesus and we keep him to the long hair and the sandals and the robes and walking around on planet Earth. Now he's not there now. He's the King of glory. So in this awakening, we will be awakened to who Jesus is now. The work of the cross is a finished work. It's from the cross and on. We're not going to keep him on the cross. It will be the revelation of Jesus in fire, in majesty, in power and glory, the Lord of lords and the King of kings. The faithful and true, the Amen, the beginning and the end, Alpha and Omega, the beginning of all creation, the one who has a double-edged sword and eyes of flames of fire, the Son of God, the one who is holy and true, who has the key of David and the keys of hell and death. He's the Lion of the King. He's the King, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. The first and the last, and the one who is resurrection life. The Lamb that was slain and who is worthy to receive power and riches, wisdom and might, honor, glory and blessing. The one who is on the throne and to whom is dominion forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. This is the one. This is the revelation we will have. This is the revelation the people of God will have. This is the revelation those who are saved, who receive the gift of salvation, the redeemed, those who come into this move. This is the revelation of Jesus that all will have, I believe. This is what I believe Paul saw, glimpsed. And we read in Philippians that Paul said, everything on life, everything I've ever been, everything I've ever achieved, I count it as but rubbish. Polite word, rubbish. Compared with knowing him. That was Paul's all-consuming desire. Because what? He had seen who the King of glory is. He had seen this Jesus risen from the cross, risen from the grave. He had seen him in majesty and power. And he said, man, once you've touched that, once you've seen that, nothing else compares. That was his consuming passion. to know Jesus, to know him more and more and more. This will be the hallmark of those in this move. Jesus, in all, is all, above all, through all, beginning and end, and everything in between. This move will not be geographical. It's not about a particular place. It will be everywhere. Everywhere. It won't be demographical. It won't be just about the young ones. It won't be just about the old ones. It's about all. It's about a complete, entire generation, whoever's breathing at the time. There are many moves that kind of target age groups. We find that. That's historically, we look back and we can see it, particularly the young. But this won't be just about the young. This is about whoever's breathing, if you're on planet Earth. It's not geographical, and it won't be demographical. It won't be about any one man. It won't be a man saying, well, I started this move, and he becomes the hero. That's what we find in revivals. Somebody gets credited with the revival, with starting the revival. But then how do they maintain it? Can't. It's never been done, because a man can't do it. This move's not about any man or any group of men, save Jesus Christ. And in that light, it won't be hijacked. Meaning what? It won't be taken over by any group. It won't be taken over by any denomination, any network, any para-organization, or any other party. Nobody will be able to say, this is our move, and this is the way it should be. It's not going to be like that. It will come from unexpected quarters. Unexpected quarters. Least expected. When you find some of the testimonies that are coming out of the Middle East, out of Syria, out of the regions where ISIS have their claws, out of strong Muslim strongholds, how God is working and changing hearts, you would say, how did that happen? We didn't go and preach. Nobody went and preached. Stuff's going to happen. Totally unexpected out of these quarters. It will come. This move will come out of all sorts of places. And because it's going to come out of all sorts of places and it's not demographical, all sorts of people are going to give rise to all opportunity to take offense. Because they don't look right. They don't sound right. They haven't got the right sayings and religiosity. I just say, but God. But God. So it's going to come from unexpected quarters. It will not be religious. It will not be religious. It won't be rules and regulations. It will be by the Spirit of the living God. It will be counter-religious. Counter-religious. It's interesting that when Jesus was on planet Earth, those he had the most trouble with were the most religious. Is that true? Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees. Woe to you, woe to you, woe to you. Because religion puts people in bondage. It won't be cultural, it'll be counterculture. What does that mean? It won't have a Kiwi slant. What's happening in New Zealand won't have a Maori slant. What's happening in Australia won't have an Aboriginal slant. It's countercultural. Why? What does that mean? It's kingdom culture. This is a new paradigm. This is a total shift. Big time. So it won't be cultural, it'll be countercultural. That will offend many too. It won't be politically correct. We don't need PC, we need truth. It won't be politically correct. And it will not be marginalized. It won't be. The world doesn't mind the church as long as the church doesn't have a voice. The problem with this move is it's going to have a voice, and a very loud voice. It will not be marginalized. Truth, justice, and righteousness will have champions on planet Earth. It's going to be fantastic. This awakening will have. There's one thing we need to underline. It's this. It will have a voice. It will bring new and fresh expressions of worship. New and fresh expressions of music, song. Many new expressions of creative gifts. Through the wisdom of God. Through the wisdom of God. The spirit of wisdom will be at work in this awakening. This will be an awakening to true love. That is the true love of God, expressed through people and into the earth, to the people of the earth. That will be a hallmark of this awakening. Signs, wonders, miracles, casting out devils, destroying the works of darkness, setting the captives free, healing all who are sick, raising the dead, making known the manifold wisdom of God will authenticate this move as a move of God and God Almighty. It will be absolutely awesome. Ephesians 3, verse 7 through to 12 says this. I'm talking about the manifold wisdom of God which is going to be released on the earth. And we read about it in Ephesians 3. Paul says this in verse 7. According to the gift of God's grace which was given to me, according to the working of his power. To me, the very least of all these saints, this grace was given to preach to the Gentiles the unfathomable riches of Christ. This is what this move is going to be about. And to bring to light what is the administration or the fellowship and the communion of the mystery. That's something that was been hidden before this time, but it's now going to be unlocked, for which for ages has been hidden in God who created all things. What for? What's this unlocking of the mystery going to be? What's this fellowship? What's this communion going to be about? It's going to be so that the manifold wisdom of God might now be made known through the church. Through the church. The manifold, the complete wisdom of God might be known through the church. Because this is a church that is in communion, in fellowship with Jesus Christ. Make sense? This was, verse 11, in accordance with the eternal purpose which he carried out in Christ Jesus our Lord. This is all part of the work of the cross. What Jesus is setting us up for, this great awakening. It will be awesome. It's my conviction that the seeds of this awakening were the seeds that were sown in the Jesus Revolution that happened in the 60s and the 70s. Why do I think that? Because in the dream, that's the era I was in. 1966 through to 1972. I knew exactly what it was about. That was the time. And I want to just read something to you about that time, about what happened in America in that time, and it'll give you a picture. And you'll understand, okay, now I think we know where we're going because of what we've been through, what was laid down, what happened. and what might happen again. And I came across an article yesterday on the net. It's probably been there for yonks. And I thought, this is very well written. So can I just read this out to you? So this is concerning the Jesus revolution, the Jesus movement, who most of you know nothing about, but from my generation, this is the hippie era, all right? This is the late 60s. This is Jimi Hendrix. This is free love, all that kind of stuff. It was a prosperous time, and yet a time of turmoil as well in the States. So I'm talking about the United States because that's where this move started, and I believe that's the seeds are still there for this move, for this next move. That's why I say I believe this next move will be the last move. And I'll expand on that later. I have a reason for believing that. This will be it. The awakening that's coming is the final. I believe that. Anyway, the Jesus movement. Bell-bottoms, Bibles, and Jesus freaks. That's kind of cool, isn't it? Let me read some of this stuff to you. The Jesus movement has made a lasting impression on America, on American society in particular. The primary impact was felt in the resurgence of Pentecostal thought, new forms of contemporary Christian music. Christians today can learn the importance of cultural relevance and fervour from those Jesus freaks, as they were called in many circles. This is one of the professors of Yale University talking. He said this. He said, the decade of the 60s, in short, was a time when the old grounds of not only historic and Western theism, that's the way we were thinking and our culture, were awash, but also the older forms of national confidence and social idealism. In fact, he continues to say that the 60s would be seen as a decisive turning point in American history. The decade of the 60s experienced a great deal of social, political, and religious upheaval, like none before. Some of the issues that drew the nation to its turning point included the civil rights movement, the Vietnam conflict, seemed to go on for years and years, students' rights movement, the ecology movement, and the decline in church attendance, among others. That's interesting, isn't it? The civil rights movement was the struggle of blacks to gain equality in jobs, housing and transportation, and other areas, including an end to segregation. In 1964 and 65, the US government passed 2 acts protecting the rights of black Americans. Still, this did not end the personal bigotry that many experienced, and the unrest continued. That's not long ago. We're talking America. While this struggle continued, America found itself in another international conflict. This was the Vietnam conflict. The start of the war in Vietnam did not receive much opposition due to the fact that most Americans saw the conflict as a battle against communism, and that was how it was portrayed. Eventually, however, activism against the war began due to the stance that this was not a war against communism at all, but instead it was a civil war between two peoples in a foreign country. And what were we doing there? Thus, an anti-war movement began that led to more political and social unrest. These were huge issues in the day. 2 other movements on the scene at the time were the students' rights movement and the ecology movement. These movements were spawned mostly by high school and college students who were trying to voice their opinions about the state of society. The student rights movement focused on removing censorship from school campuses by the administration on such things as newspapers and on-campus publications. Other issues such as curriculum, relevancy, and abolishing rules regarding conduct were also part of the agenda. The ecology movement was centered on preserving the environment for future generations and feeding the hungry. All these things were all happening at the same time in the US of A. Now this is interesting. In addition to these movements, the church was in a state of confusion and decline. Congregation numbers were declining. Members were unsure of which view was correct, and church leaders were offering little direction. How sad is that? That's the way it was. In the early 60s, churches tried to reach out to the culture however they saw fit. But unfortunately, by the late 60s, the large financial supporters in churches were cutting back due to this move towards relevance, perceived relevance. It was obvious by this time that a cultural shift was taking place. And we've heard over the last year or two or three of the shift that's about to take place again. Remember Ecclesiastes, what has been will be again. And there's nothing coming that hasn't already been in one form or another. It's happened before. So people saw a need for change in American society. Yet the church, which has always been the mode to exact change, the change agent, if you like, was falling short. That's the way it was. There was no evangelist leading the way. Even Billy Graham had begun to lose the interest of the young people by the early 70s. In addition, polls showed that the majority of churches were unwilling to change in liturgy, doctrine, or social involvement. In fact, the church as a whole had placed its focus on meeting the needs of the newly formed suburban neighborhoods of the 50s. We will provide a nice little church for you. What do you need? What would you like? Let's do it. That's the way it was. That's the way, not the way it was perceived. That's the way it was. Something had to happen, and it's not surprising that God wanted to do something and did do something. Jesus raised a movement. And interestingly, it started in San Francisco. And interestingly, it was a few blocks from the Folsom Street Fair area. Haight-Ashbury is literally only a few hundred meters. This is where the move started in the 60s. It was started by a group of 5 friends. 5 people. And they set up a coffee bar to be an evangelical outreach. And it said that through that outreach of those 5 people in that coffee bar they set up, 30 to 50,000 people were impacted, young people. 30 to 50,000. And it was they who took the move across America and further. It doesn't take a lot to start a move. And what we're going to see in the Great Awakening is not one move birthed out of 5 people. It's going to be global. Can you imagine what it's going to be like? The focus was on evangelism. The focus was on holiness. The focus was on knowing Jesus. The focus was on the Word. It was pretty cool. It was good stuff. Miracles were expected. Healings were expected. That's the way it was. And everybody was welcome. Everybody. Because we're talking about those who were in the drug scene, the hippies and the druggies of the day. They were the ones who were saved. This move, revolutionary move, came through them. So they didn't look right to the established church. When they're on drugs and it's, sex, drugs and rock and roll one day and they're saved the next and wander into a church, they don't look right. But God knew, and God had something for them. That move spawned many things, and many great people came out of it and are still going. Vineyard music. There's vineyard churches everywhere. They came directly from this move. Chuck Smith, Calvary Chapel. Hugely influential people came from this move. Transformed lives. But it wasn't the great awakening. I believe it was the seeds of what is about to happen. We can look back on that and learn and say, yeah, this was happening in a world and a nation in turmoil, in confusion. We'll look at the world now. Look at every nation. It was happening in the days when the church didn't know what to do. What's the church doing now? The church is totally marginalized. Shut up or we'll put you in jail. It's happening, isn't it? Yeah. How dare you bring your Christian viewpoint? Say anything. It's going to change. It's about to change. Big time. Those, I believe, are the seeds of this move, of this great awakening that is, shall we say, imminent? Does that mean today? Does it mean tomorrow? Does it mean next year? I don't know. I don't know. But we need to prepare. Last week we were hearing, occupy till I come. Means actually do something. Prepare and prepare the way. I believe God is preparing a people right now. And maybe we're not seeing them because we see the odd Elijah, but there's 7,000 others. For every Elijah that we see, there's 7,000 God is preparing. There are 7,000 that are hidden in every nation. It's talking about a remnant, a people movement, a great awakening. It is going to happen. We're going to see it. It's going to be awesome. I hope you want to be part of it. We're talking the total, manifold wisdom of God, every dimension of God through Jesus Christ. Everything that Jesus did, could feel, could sense, could activate, pick up in the Spirit, could communicate with the Father. That's our portion. We have the mind of Christ. We, the church. Not can have part of his mind. We have the mind of Christ. That God just wants to show us off. Isn't that amazing that he wants to do that? God could just go, flick his finger and all unrighteousness gone, wiped out from the earth. He could do that. But he wants to display his love to the lost nations. And he's going to do it through his people. There is going to be a great awakening. Prepare and prepare well.